Hello everyone, this is Kim with Abundant Life Tarot. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we are talking about spiritual intervention. And it's like a close cousin of divine intervention, but spiritual intervention has a slight difference in it, which is every moment of every day, we are co-creating with spirit the life that we want or don't want, at whatever it may be, whatever conscious thoughts, vibes that we're putting or emitting out into the universe is eventually coming back to us. And so sometimes we forget that we had some intentions way back when that we co-created with spirit. Perhaps we knew that we wanted to be thin, happy, beautiful, or perhaps some of us wanted to purchase a home at some point in our future, or you just want to be whole, perfect, and complete in your life, and you don't want to work any overtime. You just want to be, self-sufficient and be able to come and go as you please. You set all these intentions way back when, and you probably even forgot about them. Where spiritual intervention is slightly different from divine intervention is that what has already been set forth into motion is set into motion. Sometimes we get off our path. We go this way when we really intended to go this way. And spirit or the universe kind of comes back in and kind of helps us to get back on course. Sometimes that getting back on course is messy, and it is the spiritual intervention. It is okay, you said way back here on your journey, you wanted something like this to manifest. Well, here is probably the fastest way. Or here's the way that's going to get you there. You kind of veered off course and you're never going to get there. And this is an intention that you really aligned with, that it's really on your purpose, but now you've veered off course. Spiritual intervention comes in to kind of smack us back into our path and get us going. It may not be pretty. It may not. Sometimes it's pretty. Sometimes spiritual interventions happen and it's like, oh, okay, this is lovely. This is such a lovelier option than what was over here at door number, 2. But there are oftentimes spiritual intervention is messy. It is tumultuous. It is life-changing. It can be annoying. It can be all of those different things. And at the end of the day, it is really a big blessing, oftentimes in disguise. And so you probably can start, as I'm saying this, you're probably starting to think of different things in your life that were spiritual interventions. You had set an intention a long time ago. You were going on a particular course. Then you veered off course, or you stopped caring, or you stopped, thinking about your future. You start going down this other path, and then all of a sudden, you've been working a gazillion hours, you end up breaking a leg, and it feels like it's the most awful thing to happen right now. At your peak, at your busiest, how could this be? And it forces you to slow down to the point where you have a breathing moment of realizing this was not the path you were supposed to go on. You see what I'm saying? So I have so many countless examples of spiritual intervention, from something mundane like the internet going completely awry at my house. That's a whole nother ball. And I'm not going to even bore you guys with those details. But there were blessings even in that happened with that spiritual intervention. We set intentions, big and small, all day, every day in our life, whether they're intentions that are actually conscious and we thought about them, or they are subconscious, or they were we were on autopilot when we were setting them. Doesn't matter. But our life as it is now is the outpicturing of thoughts and energies that we put out previously, right? So it's like that. And so the spiritual intervention is really a gift. It is a gift. Often it comes in the form of car accidents, internet issues, relationship issues or conflicts or fights, losing a job, gaining a job, changing careers, being, finding out you have a disease or some kind of, maybe you found out you had a heart attack, or in my case, at one point I had a pulmonary embolism that totally changed my course of where I was going in my life and where I was headed and what was important to me. So you just continue to think about those times in your life when a spiritual intervention came, and then think to what ended up happening. How did it end up for you? And oftentimes you're going to be like, aha, wow, I didn't even realize that that was going to be an option. But I didn't realize that because this spiritual intervention thing, this moment, had it not happened, I probably would still be going off over here in this course, not over here. You see what I'm saying? So it's important. And it's important to recognize spiritual intervention and not be fearful of it, and not assume that when bad things happen, that it's because you aren't manifesting right, or you don't understand law of attraction, or you did it wrong, or it doesn't work. All of those things are just noise. The truth of the matter is, it was set forth back a long time ago, and oftentimes what looks bad is really that spiritual intervention or that big hidden blessing that you weren't seeing before. So I am going to talk about some 10 things that you can do, what to do when you are in the midst of a spiritual intervention in your life. It is not always fun. It is not always easy. So it's nice to have a conversation about some tips that I can offer that you can do. I want to grab my tarot deck, because sometimes as I'm shuffling, the tarot comes up with some really nice things to help me with my discussion. So we'll go with that. So number one, don't put your head in the sand. So oftentimes when something has come up like a spiritual intervention in our life, we instantly and instinctively want to hide. We want to get far away from it as possible. We are in denial. We don't want to believe it. And there is a time for that. And you have to allow for yourself to go through the motions. But you should not dwell very long in the head in the sand moment of your spiritual intervention, because there's a number of reasons. One of the main reasons is that there is probably right now in the midst of your spiritual intervention an immediate blessing. And I might have to add that as a bonus question to my spread. I'm not going to, but it might be something we can add. What is an immediate blessing of the spiritual intervention that you need to see right now, that you need to jump on right now? Maybe it's an opportunity that you need to make or take action on now. You know, you often see people putting their head in the sand with financial woes or things that come up financially. You see it with relationship issues. You see it with job performance issues. You see it there, and you see people just kind of like, I don't see anything. It's not a problem. I don't know what's going on. And in fact, everybody around you is like, how could you miss this? You need to show up to your life. You are the captain. You run this show. You're a co-creator. Even in the midst of spiritual intervention, that doesn't mean you just throw your hands up and just give up and just put your head in the sand. This is the time to really be in the driver's seat, to drive yourself up out of this situation and drive yourself to a better situation. Otherwise, you run the risk of being forced to be in a situation that you really don't want to be in. So it really is imperative to recognize that you have to really kind of be present and be ready to dive in. There you go. So next up is number 2, what to do. Cut yourself some slack. You have to be compassionate with yourself. I find that people who they have a spiritual intervention, like a relationship comes to an end, and their partner, like, totally bamboozled, like they are just so like caught off guard by this news that their partner wants a divorce or wants to break up, and they internalize it. They blame themselves. They were like, if I could have been here, if I could have been there. They start to get into self-doubt. you can see how this could go down a path that's not really healthy. Cut yourself some slack. In any situation you find yourself in, realize you were doing the best you could with what you had. And if your partner or if a situation is no longer a fit for you, then there is probably an immediate hidden blessing in there that is just for you, to give you a nod from the universe that you are actually on your path. And yeah, it sucks. Who wants to be in a breakup? But sometimes on the other side is an even bigger and deeper love that's going to come a year or two from now. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you don't cut yourself some slack, you run the risk of constantly beating yourself up, and we can be our own worst critic. You will start to set up negative thought patterns, and that's not healthy, So this is the 6 of Cups. So yeah, cut yourself some slack. And number 3, reassessment, or a real honest assessment, is needed. And so you can use the tarot card, you come up with a tarot spread to really explore and assess how you got here, the how, when, what, why, and what's next. You know what I mean? So, and what you should be doing next, and where should you be going from here. You really can't do any planning without having an assessment of your current situation. So one of the things that, for example, another typical spiritual intervention would be someone who's going through financial troubles, and they're now coming to a realization that yet again, there's yet another creditor that is in their midst, and they may have to file for bankruptcy. Part of the whole bankruptcy process is to assess all the debts, to look at everything and all the spending habits and all the lack of savings, or all the, whatever. You see what I'm saying? So you have to assess where you are before you can move to the next step, before you can move forward. And then that's where that compassion piece comes in, where you withhold judgment on yourself. Yeah, there's learning lessons, I'm sure, in any and every spiritual intervention. But at this particular point in it, the new part of it, it may not be at that moment that you're learning the lesson. But you may at this very moment be getting the initial blessing of that spiritual intervention. So don't miss out on it. Okay? Because there's real opportunity to help your life. Number 4, be honest throughout the process. Be authentic to yourself. No one is really interested in your lies, or your lies to yourself, or you're trying to see things in. Just be real with yourself is all I'm going to say. There's not much to say there other than, at this point, when you do your real assessment, now it's time to get real with yourself, So that's all. Be real, be honest with yourself throughout the process. If, like with the bankruptcy example, be real that you have a certain shopping habit that needs to be looked at. And instead of sticking your head in the sand, or not really reassessing that, or not cutting yourself some compassion, you can see how this will continue to have a vicious cycle in your life. This is where spiritual intervention is like, no more to the cycles. It's time to reset. We need to get back on course. We're running late here, according to what you said you wanted to create long time ago. So. Number 5, keep doing affirmations. Keep affirming what it is that you do wish to create. Keep affirming what it is that you want to manifest in your life. Keep affirming the condition that you wish to experience, even in the midst of what you're going through. When my son had his accident, and right immediately after, it was like there wasn't a lot of energy or time spent on thinking about the future. It was just the now. But as he started to recover, you're like, okay, it's time to start back saying my affirmations. When I'm at a safe zone of not worrying about life or death, I now need to start thinking about affirmations. They need to be very much a part of your life, or some form of affirming. I don't know how. Affirmations work for me. Maybe you have another method, but don't forego it just because you're having either a crisis or a spiritual intervention of sorts, because that won't help. So affirming actually stamps your future with the present, and you are setting up the foundation for your future in the present with your affirmations right now for your future. Otherwise, if you don't invest in now in terms of, what you're putting out to the universe, you're going to have more of the same later down the line. Let's see. Number 6, don't forget about your self-care. Self-care is super important. Meditation, food, water, sleep, exercise, family relationships, alone time if that's what you need. All of that is super important and should not be forgotten, especially during a spiritual intervention time. So make sure that you are doing your best that you can to take care of yourself at all times, of course, but especially when you recognize that, oh my goodness, I'm in the midst of something and it's something that is clearly here to help me. I just can't see how yet, but I need to take really good care of myself right now so I can show up as my best me as I deal with this situation. And then we have number 7, visualize your life and how you will feel on the other side of this event. And that goes without saying. Spending a minute or so per day to sit in a moment of visualizing yourself on the other side of this, whether it's a minor spiritual intervention to a major life-changing, life-altering one. Just being able to visualize your life, again, it's still important to invest in your future, even in the midst of turmoil. And people may argue with me on that, but I have been in immense turmoil and tragedy and still had to pull myself together to think about my future. So I say this not just, well, I can just say this or that. I say it from experience. I just had to say that. Spiritual intervention someone's having. There's like a fire truck and ambulance outside, and you might can even see the lights flashing. Okay, and Ella's coming because she's probably concerned because it's like right there. Hopefully she didn't call 911. Anyways, number 8, learn from your divine intervention. Because there's always takeaways. There's always gifts to a spiritual intervention. So if you've had prior spiritual interventions, and we all have many of them to choose from, take a moment to pick one and study the evolution of it and then what happened on the other side in your life afterwards versus before it. And you will start to see the lessons. You will start to see the beautiful gifts that were given to you. So learn the lessons. Always be open to the lessons that a spiritual intervention is trying to teach. And let's see, what else do we have? Okay. That's number 8. Number 9, don't forget to plan and set goals. We talked about that at length, of making sure that you don't stop planning. You don't stop setting goals. It's important to set goals and plan right here, right now, when you're not in the midst of a spiritual intervention. So that way you can have something to consult when you are in the midst of something to give you peace and solace. But not only that, to actually give you a plan on how to move forward into your life. I'm sorry, I'm just wondering if the light is like, there's literally, I wonder if it's my neighbor across the street. It's kind of freaking me out. It's like, you can't make these things up, I tell you. It's like literally someone is having a spiritual intervention right now. Anyways, okay, number 10, infuse gratitude into your everyday. And you can do that with gratitude lists. You can do that by waking up in the morning and just saying 5 things you're grateful for, or, and then when you go to bed, think about 5 things you're grateful for the day. There's so many different ways to infuse gratitude into your everyday. I strongly encourage you to do it. And gratitude for the spiritual intervention. Sometimes it's too soon when you're in the midst of it to be grateful, because you're like, I don't even know what to be grateful for. Right now, life sucks. And that's okay. That's where the compassion comes in for yourself. But I've had many sucky things that have happened that I am now immensely grateful for. And I'm grateful that we made it on the other side. And I really don't necessarily want to go through it again. But the blessings upon blessings upon blessings that came from that spiritual intervention moment are priceless for me. So I am grateful for them. And now many of the things that were tumultuous in my life, like short selling my first home that I purchased by myself, that was upsetting. But now, that didn't define me as a person who would never own a home again. That wasn't my story. Turns out I am much smarter and savvier with real estate. And I was now able to buy something that was more suited for my family. And I was much better at reading contract and understanding the terms and making sure it was terms I really should be trying to be a part of. So I'm grateful for that. It was a painful experience, but now several years later, I'm so happy I went through it. I gained so much from it. So share with me when you have time, different times in your life that you had a spiritual intervention, and some, ways that you work through it. Some tips. You could go to our Facebook group, our private Facebook group, Abundant Life Tarot. That's where we all hang out to chit chat about such things like these topics. You can comment on the video. You can personally email me. But I think that it's so important to be able to see the blessings in the not so beautiful things of life. Yeah, there are some spiritual interventions that happen that are not so bad and actually are kind of nice, but more often than not, it's sometimes messy. But that's okay. We make it through it. We get through it together. And we get through it together by being honest with what it is and realizing, okay, at the core of this, is this a spiritual intervention moment or is this something else? You know what I mean? And it changes how you manifest. It changes how you move through your life. And it helps you become a deliberate creator. It helps you to realize that everything is a stepping stone to the life you are wishing to create. So that's it for now. We will now move on to part 2, where we talk about the tarot spread, and I do the spread for myself with the cards here. So thanks so much for watching, everyone. So much love and many blessings to all of you. See you all in the next video.